All right. I get it. Let's talk about the Tau properly this time. Hello again, my little conscripts and Guvesa, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. So last week I released a video about the Tau, and it was a commentary on where the Tau have come from, how they've been in 10th edition, and what direction their meta is going to go in now that they've had a bunch of buffs. But I'm not going to lie, it was kind of a spicy video. It was a stream highlight. I was going on a bit of a rant. I was waxing lyrical. I was riffing. Can I riff, guys? Can I? And, well, it definitely got a few people's backs up. It definitely got a bit of a reaction. But there were some actually really good points raised in that video. There were some legitimate things that I hadn't considered and hadn't thought of. So what I want to do today is address some of those comments and also go into a bit more of a sensible analysis of the Tau and where I think they're going in 10th edition now that they've had a buff. Now I know what some of you are going to be thinking, and are going to be typing down in the comment section. Mordian, you're only making this video because you spoke a bunch of shit and you got a bunch of pushback, and now you're trying to do damage control. And let me say this, nothing could be further from the truth. I'm going to double down. I am going to explain to you why I think Tau are a really powerful faction right now, and maybe even a little broken. And also, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Because if you talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. And I will explain what I mean by that a little bit later on in this video. But with all that said, let's now get into this video proper. First of all, let's address the crazy comments. I had somebody say that I was an Asian-hating racist. I had somebody say that I was a nonce. If you're not familiar with that term, it means that you are a kiddie diddler. And I also had a few people say that I was alt-right and a Nazi and all of that kind of stuff. Now, it would be really easy for me to play the victim card here and go, look at the Tau community, they're all crazy, and paint them all with the same brush and basically just find a bunch of outrage. But that wouldn't be true. Everyone can see these comments, just people acting a bit crazy, getting a bit overexcited, and it's a bunch of bullshit. But there was one that stood out to me and made me go, what the fuck? And it was this particular comment. Mordian Glory isn't the best at his takes, not gonna lie. He hearted, loves your comment, Goebbels' speech about the Jew, which replaced Jew with Tau a few years ago. And I saw that and was like, wait, what? Because I had no idea what this comment was on about. Fortunately, someone posted the link to it, and it turns out that it was this comment in particular. So it turns out that this is a paraphrased quote straight from none other than Joseph Goebbels. Oh dear. Total hand on heart moment here. Total honesty, I did not know that. It's not a particularly bold take, but Nazis are bad, okay? And if I had known that, I wouldn't have liked it and I wouldn't have hearted it. This is a fuck up on my end, and I'm going to own that mistake and go, guys, I shouldn't have liked it. So let's rectify our mistakes and let's learn from them. But with all of that out the way, now let's get to the main meat and potatoes of this video and let's talk about the Tau. Now, there were hundreds of comments that were left in response to the video, and I would love to be able to go through and reply to each one individually. But I think we'd still be here at the heat death of the universe if I did that. So instead, I'm just going to say thank you to everyone that left a comment. I do appreciate you taking the time to do that, even if it was just simply to disagree with me. And I also want to apologize for not being able to address them all individually. And instead, what I'm going to do is just pick out some of what I thought were the best comments, what were some of the best themes, some of the best pushback, and some of the best points that were made. So one of the first things that I noticed is that the Tau community were pushing back on me saying that they had a really, really high win rate. And I was saying they had like a 56% win rate overall, and that one of the detachments had an 83% win rate, albeit from a very, very small sample size. And what the Tau community pushed back on and said is that they only had a 52% win rate. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know where that 52% win rate came from. Where I got my information from is from Meta Monday, which analyzes all of the tournament data from each weekend for all the GTs that are registered on BCP, and then aggregates it down and gives the average win rate for each faction and each detachment. Now, if there's another source of data that you are aware of, I would love to know what that is. Please let me know down in the comment section, because I'm always trying to find new sources for stuff, and I would appreciate it. Also, it's good to know where you guys are getting your information from, so I can get a sense of where you're coming from. Now, since that Meta Monday came out that said 56%, we've actually had another set of data that has come out, which shows Tau at 40%. So clearly, egg all on my face. I'm going to have to eat an entire murder of crow pies. Clearly, I was wrong, right? As crazy as it sounds, I'm going to say no. Mordian, how can you say no? They've got a 40% win rate. Clearly, Tau are trash. Hang on. Let me explain. So here we have the data that I am referring to. This is on the Meta Monday website, and it shows Tau having a 40% win rate. It'd be really easy to look at that and see that the only people below them are Space Wolves, which don't have their codex yet, and goddamn Imperial Agents, and be like, okay, well, you can forget about Agents, you can kind of dismiss Space Wolves. Tau are clearly the bottom faction right now. But I think you need to dig a little deeper. I think this is the true number you want to be looking at. This is the number of players that played the faction this weekend. And if you compare it to last weekend, and you compare it to the weekend before that, you can actually see that the number of players that have played Tau this weekend was a 50% increase. And you can actually see that when the Tau had lower player numbers, they had a nearly 50% win rate, and you can see here they had a 56% win rate. I believe this is the phenomenon of the fair weather player. This is where you have a bunch of people who hear a faction has just received a large amount of buffs, has seen them start to do well in previous weeks, and decide that they are going to jump on the bandwagon. But they don't actually really know how to play the army. They come in expecting that they're going to be able to just walk into some easy wins, and what actually happens is they end up getting their ass handed to them. So you have the number of players go up, but you have the overall win rate coming down. Because at the end of the day, whether it's Tau or Guard or Marines or Death Guard even, and they're very, very powerful right now, at this stage in 40k 10th edition, most people who are going to tournaments are veterans. Of course, there's always going to be one or two new people, but we're in the third year of 10th edition, and I've seen this happen a lot over the editions that I've played in. The first couple of years, everyone is just playing, and then they start getting burned out. And so they start looking for another game. Maybe they're sick of the constant rules changes. Maybe GW tweaks their faction one too many times and they get sick of it. Whatever it may be. But essentially, they decide to try another game out. Maybe they go over to some video games. Maybe they try out a game like Bolt Action. Or they try Old World or Heresy, whatever it may be. But people start to focus on other things. And so what's left over, generally speaking, is the more hardened competitive community. And in that environment, it's very hard to just pick up an overpowered army and go and start seal clubbing, because there aren't that many seals around. Most of the time you're going to go in there, and even if you face off against someone who has on paper a weaker faction than you, they're going to have reps with it, they're going to know what they're doing with it, and so you are going to be at a significant disadvantage, because the biggest disadvantage in Warhammer 40k is using a list and using an army you don't have experience with. And the biggest buff is using a list that you know and using an army that you're very, very familiar with. And that holds true to every faction. Probably, okay, maybe not Imperial Agents, but everyone but Imperial Agents. Now, some of you are going to be saying, Mordian, you're just interpreting the statistics that way to try and save face. After all, there's lies, damn lies, statistics, and you can pretty much use any of them to try and back up any point that you're making. No. This is a stance that I have had. This is something that I have talked about it must be for years at this point. You can go back and look at some of my old Meta Mondays and you'll see me saying this about my own personal favorite faction, the Guard. How the Guard win rate will go up and then people will jump on the faction and then it'll go down, and then because the player numbers, because the win rate goes down, the player numbers go down and the win rate goes back up again. It is something we have seen take place quite consistently with certain factions over the course of 10th edition. Moving on. The next comment that was really jumping out to me was people saying that I was just complaining about this because Guard are really bad at the moment. And I had some people saying I've just been complaining about it because I'm really bad, and Guard have had actually a really high win rate all of the edition. And I've actually seen a bit of a trend on the Warhammer competitive subreddit where people are, this is independent of the video, but it reminded me of it, that people have been saying that Guard are really bad right now. People are abandoning the faction, the player numbers are really low, and that essentially Guard are in the toilet. I want to just push back on all of that. Firstly, I have actually said from the beginning of 10th edition, you can go back and look at the reveal stream that I did when we got the Guard index and GW released all the datasheets free online, and I went through every single one and I was like, lads, we are eating good. I couldn't see a bad datasheet outside of things like the Minister and Priest. Imperial Guard has some incredible datasheets. In fact, I think one of the things that kept us so solid throughout all of 10th edition, even when they've nerfed us here, given us points increases there, even when they messed with indirect fire, is that the fundamental, even when our detachment rules, like you had to stay still to get lethals in a game where movement wins games, I've been saying from the beginning that the Guard datasheets are really, really solid. I think Guard is a really powerful faction. I think Guard is in a really powerful place right now. And I think that one of the explanations for the traditional Guard win rate, and I'm going to say something now which you might think, Mordian, you're just ragging on your own community, but I know that Guard players are going to listen to this and going to go, fuck yeah. So Guard has a lot of tools in the toolbox. We have an incredibly flexible army that can play in a whole number of play styles, and one of our biggest advantages is the fact that we're not one-dimensional. So you can go to a tournament and you could play Guard, let's say it's an ITT, you could play Guard like 3 times, or you go to a GT, you could play Guard like 3 out of 5 games. Each one of those Guard armies will be different. You could have one person that's turned up with Hammer of the Emperor, loads of Rogel Dawns, crashing through, all of that. You could have another Guard player that turns up with a mechanized army, with lots of transports, Kazakin, driving forward. You can have another Guard army which is pure infantry. You can have another Guard army which is a mixture of everything. One of the things that makes Guard often quite hard to play into is the fact that they don't just have a one-dimensional playstyle. Now, this has some incredible benefits for when you're playing the army competitively, but Guard players know what they like and they like what they know. You will have a Guard player who will go, I like the Krieg. I don't care that the siege attachment is probably the worst one in the codex. I'm going to take Krieg every single time. I don't care how much they get nerfed. I'm going to take them every single time. I'm going to take them in the siege attachment, and I'm going to play like I'm playing World War I in space. And they're going to get smashed every time, but they're going to have a big grin on their face, and they're not going to change their ways because they're dug in. And they will take this attitude into the tournament scene. More than almost any other faction, I feel like Guard players put self-imposed restrictions on them, like, I want to win with pure tanks. I want to win with pure Krieg. Can I build the Tanith first and only and represent them on the tabletop? And it can really suppress the win rate. I know a bunch of Guard players are like, he's talking about me right now. He's talking about me. I am talking about you right now. And never change. I love you, you crazy bastard. Like, Guard players will be told what the best way to do something is. They will have all of the data laid out in front of them. They will listen and nod along to the well-reasoned argument and then go, fascinating. But have you tried taking 2 Doomhammers? So in summary, I think that Guard is a really solid faction. We're in a really good place right now. I've been having great success with them since the beginning of 10th edition. I think a huge amount of that has not really been down to me, but has been down to the fact that the data sheets are really solid, and we've got lots of different detachments to pick from now that give us a variety of genuinely competitive playstyles. But I think that the win rate is kind of down because Guard players like meme lists, they like theme lists. We're more in touch with the orcs than we'd ever want to admit. And so we end up handicapping ourselves, and this kind of artificially suppresses the win rate. We don't mind losing, and often we'll choose to lose on our terms. And you know what's funny? The Tau community is kind of the same. And I know neither side will ever admit this, but we're more similar than we dare to think. Because one of the big bits of pushback I got was, but Mordian, I like battlesuits. I got into the faction because I like battlesuits. I got into the faction because of like Gundam and Mecha, and Crisis suits have been our core identity, and battlesuit spam has been our core identity as a faction for quite a long time. Whether it's Riptides or Crisis suits, that's always been, or, you know, whether it's in the lore or whether it's on the tabletop, Crisis suits and battlesuits are our jam. And it's all well and good you saying we should be more like Xenos Guard, but that's not why I got into the faction. And I like to go in there with my battlesuits, smash the entire area, and kill anything that doesn't believe in the greater good. And even though every fibre of my being wants to go, but you just smashing people and blowing them off the table in one go, I have to actually take a step back and go, I get it. For the longest time, Tau have been about the battlesuits. They've been about crisis suits with Farsight Bomb. I remember last time I played against them in 9th edition, I played them at a super major, and this army was just like 3 fully tooled up units of battlesuits, and it absolutely smashed me. Ironically, I was running Tau at the time, and I was running them like Xenos Guard, and I did okay, but the peak Tau army definitely showed me the way it was meant to be done. And so when I think back of all the times that I've played against Tau over the years, yeah, it's been about battlesuits, man. It is a core identity of the faction, so I get why some players love that so much. And even if it's a bit like, from the person being on the receiving end of it, it can be very difficult. And I think we can all admit, even the Tau players think, we can all admit, there has been some jank with battlesuits in the past. Like, God, remember how you could put, like, was it like 20 or 30 drones around like a Riptide, and you had to kill all the drones to get to the Riptide? That, yeah, tough, right? There has been some janky stuff. But the core identity of the faction has been Crisis suits. And so for someone from outside of your faction to come along and start telling you, no, you should be playing your army a different way, it's going to get your back up. And I get it. It would be like someone coming to me and saying, Guard players, you shouldn't use tanks anymore. I would get really annoyed if someone said that to me. If someone came outside and was like, yeah, the way you should run your Guard is to run them like a Tau army. You should be spamming like Sentinels and you should be spamming like Ogres and Bulgars and stuff like that. You shouldn't be taking your classic mixture of infantry, tanks, and artillery. You should go down this other path that you've never really been down before. And even if like competitively that would be the right way to do it, and as a competitive player I probably would embrace it, I would still be a bit miffed. I'd still be a bit pissed off that I was now kind of playing the army in a way that I didn't really like. And Guard has had a little bit of that when we've lost things like units of conscripts and stuff, which have been a big part of our faction for a long time, were a core part of our identity, wave after wave of infantry going in. And now that they're gone, I do feel like there is a hole in the identity of the Guard. So whilst I think that there has been some janky shit in the past from Tau and from battlesuit spam, I do fully acknowledge and recognize and respect the fact that in one way or another, battlesuit spam has been a core identity of the Tau. But you know what? I don't think battlesuit spam is the way to go anymore. This is my analysis of where the Tau are, okay? This is one of the parts of it. I think that if you've got a bunch of players that are coming back into the faction, they're taking their Tau armies off the shelf and bringing them back. A lot of those armies are going to consist of those traditional Tau units, of things like crisis suits. You've got the whole retaliation cadre, right? It's all built around crisis suits. But I don't think crisis suits are... I don't think it's it anymore, guys. Looking at where crisis suits were and looking at where they are now, they are a pale shadow of their former selves. Think about what I was saying before about that Tau player that schooled me back in 9th edition. he had in his army, I think it was 3 units of battle suits. There were 6 or 7 strong each one. There were 4 or 5 battle suits in each group, and then they had a commander that was nearby to them. I don't think they joined because you couldn't join back in 9th, could you? But they were nearby. Each one of those groups of battle suits was in a much larger squad than they are now. Now you're going to take 3. So the squad size is about halved. And then you also had the fact that they could all take whatever weapons that they wanted, because it was just Christ suits. It wasn't Fire Knife and Sunforge and all that kind of stuff. So they could take the most optimum loadout in great force concentration. Now they can't be taken as big as numbers, and the weapon loadouts are a bit more janky. By janky, I don't mean that in a good way, I mean that in a bad way. Like, they're harder to get as efficient as you want. And then on top of that, you don't have the drone thing anymore. Sure, you can take shield drones and add a wound onto your crisis suits, but the big thing about drones before is that you could hit a unit of crisis suits which had some drones. You could hit them with like a flat damage 3 weapon, and rather than doing 3 damage to a crisis suit, you would kill 1 drone. Now, if you hit them with a flat damage 3 weapon, you do 3 wounds to that crisis suit. So they haven't got the drone durability anymore, they haven't got the efficiency of loadout anymore, and they haven't got the squad size that they need anymore. I think we've got a bunch of people coming back into Tau which are going to try battlesuit spam, and I don't think that's the way to go about it. I think that is what's going to cause the Tau win rate to go down, and I think that it's going to be another style that is going to emerge as a more competitive way of playing the army. In fact, one of the comments that was left in the video is that if you actually, they said, Mordian, if you actually look at the way a lot of Tau armies are running now, sorry, I slipped the tongue, a lot of Tau armies are running now, there's not a lot of crisis. There's like maybe a squad or 2 in there, and then you've got a lot of people that are running things like tanks, running things like Riptides, and they're taking these other units. And I think that does reflect my analysis of the power of the Tau army right now, where the power lies within the codex. And I also think that kind of explains a little bit of why you've got a lot of Tau players are saying that their datasheets are mid. Because I look at some of the Tau datasheets and I go, wow, I really like that. I really like the Riptide with its iron accelerator. It's flat 4 damage. I don't have anything that's flat 4 damage outside of super heavies in my army. And then you've got things like, I like the Hammerhead. So it can hit on a 4, guided hits on a 3, against a vehicle it hits on a 2. You can have it reroll 1s with stealth suits, and then it can have an inbuilt reroll to wound thanks to its own ability. I like that. And they're only 145 points. I like that a lot. And they come with 2 Seeker missiles. I really like that. So I think there are certain datasheets which are really good, but those traditional ones that people will be coming back in with, they're going to be looking at their crisis and going, these are not doing what they used to do. And I think it's going to cause them to go, I'm not enjoying my faction. My identity of my faction changing a little bit, and I think it's going to cause the win rate to come down. I think there's a whole number of factors which are coming together and compounding and what are sort of feeding into this state, the current state of the Tau, this soup, as it were. Now, we touched upon faction identity there, and I want to go a step further, because the next big comment that I got, and it's not just one that I've had on my video, but it's one that I've seen as a general sentiment about Tau from their community, and from people outside the community as well, is that they should be the shooting faction. They should have the best shooting in the game. And I want to push back on this a little bit. I think that Tau being the shooty faction is actually probably the main source of bitterness towards them, because shooting in 40k is generally seen as quite uninteractive. In melee, there's a bit of a risk of you've got to charge, they might interrupt, but with shooting, it's just come out and shoot. I actually think one of the big issues that Guard has had recently, I know I keep making this about Guard, but bear with me. I think one of the big issues that Guard has had in 10th edition is they have increasingly made our close combat options less viable. So Bulgrin went through a really bad spot. They can't receive orders or anything like that. Ogren in a similar place. We actually lost Crusaders going from essentially 9th edition to 10th edition. In fact, if you look at Guard options right now, really shooting is all we've got. And so you've started having a lot of criticisms that have been laid against Tau traditionally now come in the way of Guard, where it's like, well, all Guard do is just sort of blow you off the table. I truly wish that GW would give us back some better melee options. Guards shouldn't have the best melee, but we should have some good enough melee to tempt us towards actually taking it, so that we can't be tempted and we don't just fall back on the blam 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 blam. Now likewise, I think Tau should be made a more well-rounded faction. I think that GW really should be embracing the auxiliaries. I think the idea of Tau being the battlesuit faction should be now left in the past. And I think we should have battlesuits as a tool in the toolbox that do decent shooting. I think a lot of the core Tau units should be good at shooting, but I think Tau should get more auxiliaries that give them more options than just battlesuits and shooting. I think Games Workshop started to do this at the beginning of 10th edition with the release of that Kroot box and with the remaking of the Vespid, but I think they need to go a step further. In 11th edition, Tau should get a massive suite of new models. I'm talking they should be eating good. They should get the equivalent of the Guard refresh in 9th and the new Plastic Krieg, and they should get all of that in 11th edition. But almost none of it should be Tau. It should be different strains of Auxilia that give them many, many more tools in the toolbox and encourage them to have their Tau units as the long-range fire support stuff, and then the auxiliaries as the cannon fodder and the units that are going forward. The fact that there's only Kroot and Vespid, and they have massively expanded the Kroot, that's a good start. But the fact there's only Kroot and Vespid, I think, is a crime. There should be Guvesa in there. Just off the top of my head, there should be a Fire Warrior equivalent, but it's only got 5+ armor, because they keep the best armor for the true Fire Warriors. They only get pulse carbines, and they hit in melee on a 4+ rather than a 5+, and maybe give them some dated ability, I don't know, but that should be something. But then I remember reading the second Last Chances book, where they go to do the assassination mission on the Tau Fringe world, and it explains all of these different auxiliaries and mercenaries that the Tau are gathering, and you've got like these aliens that are pure tentacles, and you've got these aliens which are actual like canine, like dog soldiers, and then you've got the alien psychers as well. People say, oh, Tau shouldn't be the army that has access to psychers. Not at all. Tau should have access to psychers, but they shouldn't be Tau psychers. They should be auxiliary psychers. And I think that's the direction that I want GW to take Tau in. Now, you can fully disagree with me on that. Please. This is just like my opinion, man. But I, as someone who has about 8,000 points of Tau, would love to see them have an edition where they finally go full auxiliary, and we get to complete the picture of the Tau. We get the Tau who like to stay back and do the long-range fire support. We get the psychic auxiliaries. We get the sneaky Kroot. We get the more cannon fodder, more disposable frontline infantry of things like the Guvesa and some other more obscure races. And I think Tau is one of those factions which could truly have a smorgasbord, a cornucopia of interesting alien race. Like every codex, there should be another alien race or two that gets added. That would be so cool. And I think, personally, I would like the identity of the Tau to go from being the shooting guys to the rich tapestry of the galaxy guys. But there's one point that I haven't addressed yet, and it's the big one. The new Tau army rule. The new way that For the Greater Good works. Now, one of the biggest criticisms of the original way that For the Greater Good worked in 10th edition is that it's just a bad rule. It just contains like a debuff, and it's just a bit awkward. And you know what? Tau players are absolutely right. Old For the Greater Good was a nightmare. I've played a bit of Tau in 10th edition. I enjoyed it, But it was so annoying have to be like, well, this unit's going to pair with this unit, and then this unit's going to do this, and then when this one spots for this, it ignores cover, but when this one spots for this, it doesn't ignore cover because this one's got a mark light, but this one doesn't have a mark light. Oh, it was a nightmare. And it was awkward. And if you didn't spot for the right unit, and then you ended up overkilling, you couldn't just like go and look at another unit because then you'd be -1 to hit that one. And it was just, it was awkward, it was janky, it was overcomplicated. I found myself messing up a few times. I found myself getting mixed up a few times, and it definitely needed to change. 100% I will back the Tau community up to the hilt on that one. However, I think that the way that Games Workshop has changed it, I think they've overcorrected, personally. Overall, I think they've gone from making it too awkward with too big a debuff to too easy and too convenient. And that there definitely is a happy medium. Now, I don't know exactly what the answer is, but I have had one idea, and I think it's a good middle ground, and I'd like some feedback on it. Step 1, you remove the debuff. I agree that the debuff was too harsh, too awkward, and just wasn't fun. So we remove the, if you don't shoot at your spotted unit, you get -1. So Tau can still split fire if they want to. The second thing that you do is you keep the limited aspect of it. So one unit can guide for one other unit. One unit is the observer, one unit is the spotted unit. But you change it so that the marker light keyword means that a unit with marker light can be the observer unit for 2 other friendly Tau units. So yes, that would mean that your stealth suits could go, I'm going to spot that and that. I'm going to do 2 units, and then my cry suits are going to come in and do the damage, or my riptides are going to come in and do the damage. But it's just those 2 targeting that enemy there. So I can target the thing I'm guided on, but if I want to split fire, I can do, but I'm going to be hitting on 4s. I think that creates a bit of a limitation around it, so it's not really, I would say, abusable, where you've got like one stealth suit team which can pick one thing and the whole army can dogpile on it. But it also means that you're not doing what was the problem in the past, where you've got almost like a 1-to-1 ratio for I've got to take 1 spotter and 1 observer. That was too much tax. You had to spend too much on spotted units. I get that. And Tau players, they want to take a few observers, but really they're here for, like we said, the big suits. They're here for the tanks. They're here for the cry suits. So we want to make it so you're taking enough of a tax, as it were, for the guiding, but that you're not being forced to go on this 1-to-1 ratio, which was too harsh for tax, okay? And then finally, I think you say Pathfinders can guide 2 units because they have the marker light keyword, but they also count as guided against both of those units. So it's almost like they're guiding 3 units. They're guiding themselves, and they're guiding 2 other friendly units onto 2 enemy units. And that way, I think that means that Pathfinder, you want to do it that way with Pathfinders because you want them to be able to get the +1 to hit on their rail rifles. You want to have an incentive for taking those rail rifles, but you also want them to be doing what Pathfinders do, which is marking up a couple of enemy units. So you sort of have these tiers for the greater good. Anything can spot, but it's a 1-to-1. If you take something with the marker light, it's a 2-for-1. If you take Pathfinders, it's a 2-for-1 and themselves essentially getting you a pseudo 3-for-1, because that means you've got units which aren't really set up for being guided but can still do it. They're not sufficient, but they can do it in a pinch. You've got units which have got marker light, so they're better at guiding, and then you've got Pathfinders which are like the ultimate observers, because that's what they are in the lore. Overall, I think it's a nice halfway house, and it allows you to avoid the feel badsies of your army rule debuffing you, allows Tau players to at least split fire without any negative consequences, but encourages them to use their units together in concert, encourages like these mini hunter cadres to go around the board, and helps define what is a spotter unit and what is a damage dealing unit, because the spotted units are going to be just much better at doing it, so you're encouraged to take it, but you don't need to take so many of them that you can't get all of the fun toys that you want in your list. And I think that would actually put For the Greater Good on the same level as Chain of Command and Orders for the Guard, where you have to take a few of these sort of tax units to get access to it, but it's convenient enough and there's no negative debuffs to doing it. Because one of the big things that the Tau players did say is that, well, we need to be able to hit on 3 as a shooting army. 100% agree with that. I feel the same way for the Guard. And also they were like, but our Guard orders are more convenient and you can, like, they don't have a negative downside and you can hide your characters within your units. And I do think that, yes, Guard orders are convenient and we don't have any negative downsides for it. I think Tau should have that. But we do have to take quite a lot of them to make our army work. And I feel like the Guard tax would probably be higher because typically it's like one command squad does one order. One Castellan can like buff 2 units, but he kind of needs to go with the command squad to be able to do them over any meaningful distance thanks to the Master Vox. So I think there would be that the distinction between the two is that the Tau would pay less tax, but you could pick their spotters. You could pick them out of the army, and then they'd have to start using less efficient units for it. Guard orders would be more protected, but you'd probably end up spending more points, more of a tax on them to be able to make sure you've got all the orders that you need for the army. So they're on a similar power level, but they've got a slightly different feel. They've got a significantly different feel to them, and there's also a different pro and con to each one. Now that nearly covers everything, but there's one last point. I said at the beginning of this video, if you're going to talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. And that's exactly what I intend to do. I firmly believe that Tau are very powerful right now. I think that they are a much higher than 40% win rate faction. And so, what I've decided to do, and what I pledge to you now, is I am going to take Tau to a tournament. I'm going to take them to, not an RTT, like I've done in the past, but to a GT. There's a local one in my area. It's pretty big. Normally gets 40 or 50 people that sign up to it. And it's a bit of a Shark Tank. In fact, a lot of people there play Death Guard, so it's going to be a real Shark Tank this time. And we are going to see if theory meets reality. Because I think that Tau look really good at the moment. But there's only one way to really find out. And that is to take them into the competitive meta. And this is the list that I have come up with. Now, this very well may change between now and when I go to tournament, because I am going to try and get a practice game or two in. But I have gone for Monka, and I have gone for what I would describe as a Guardified Tau army. Now, I know that's probably going to get some Tau players' backs up. But what I mean by that is we're not going to be spamming crisis suits. We're going to be adhering to what I think is the 4 pillars of a good army, especially a good Guard army. We're going to have primary game, secondary game, damage dealers, and a bit of indirect fire. Now, I've gone for an Ethereal, who's essentially going to sit on my home objective and try and get me an extra CP. I've then gone for 4 units of Fire Warriors with a Guardian Drone and a Gun Drone, because Fire Warriors come with Marker Lights inbuilt. This is going to form the basis of my infantry corps. In addition to this, we're going to have 2 units of Pathfinders with the semi-automatic grenade launcher, grav inhibitor drone, recon drone, and we're going to have the 3 rail rifles. And we're going to have 15 stealth suits. Prevailing wisdom at the moment for the Tau is you take sort of 3 small group stealth suits and maybe a Farsight marksman as well. I think that makes it too easy for you to lose your good spotting units, and then you end up with damage dealers having to spot, which misses out on them doing damage. I want to have an overabundance of spotting units, but ones that can also pull double duty. Like stealth suits are obviously good at spotting, but they also can put out a lot of DACA as well. Pathfinders are good at spotting and they can do damage. The strike teams can do good spotting, but also they can do good screening and they can do good primary gaming. There's a lot of OC in these units. I've then gone for some damage dealers and indirect fire in the same sort of category. So we've got 3 individual broadsides. I may change this. I may go for 1 team of 2 broadsides to avoid battle shock and make it more efficient for the auto advance 6 inches and shoot a stratagem. And then take these this broadside here and actually put it into an extra squad of Pathfinders to give me a bit more spotting, a bit more firepower, and a bit more infantry. But for now, I've gone for 3 broadside battlesuits, and I've gone for heavy rail rifles, and I've gone for the smart missile systems here, and I've gone for the missile pods. It says Seeker missile here. I'll probably end up going for the thing that lets me ignore to hit modifiers so that my smart missile systems can do indirect fire half decent, because you don't want a lot of indirect fire, but you want to be able to actually, you know, shoot things you can't see. And it's like a small like shithead unit just sat on an objective. You want to be able to take that away from your opponent, so they have to put something more viable back there. Indirect fire is such a nice tool to have in the toolbox. We've then gone for 3 hammerhead gunships, 2 with railgun, 1 with ion cannon, and then we have gone. I just love rail cannons. I know ion heads seem to be the better one, but I think you can't. Yeah, you have to respect a railgun. It's a bit of a dilemma for your opponent. 1 piranha. That's the equivalent of Scout Sentinel. I'm going to be just using that to get early area denial or early external fronts without having to overexpose. And then we've gone for 2 Riptides because they're tough, and also iron accelerators being flat 4 damage is pretty bloody tasty. And overall, that is going to give me 60 infantry and 15 stealth suits. It's going to give me 3 broadsides, 3 hammerheads, 2 Riptides, and a piranha. I'm going to have stuff that's good at doing secondary game in the form of the piranha and the stealth battlesuits. I am going to have stuff that's good at primary game in the form of all of the infantry and the big units of stealth suits that will be able to not only do spotting, but also be able to infiltrate forward and do good stuff like that. And I'm going to have indirect fire with all the smart missile systems. I've overdone it on the smart missile systems for now, but I'm definitely going to be taking some. And then we're going to have some damage dealers. I know some people are going to straight away say, Mordian, wear the crisis suits. I'm leaving them at home. I think with 40k at the moment, there are too many armies that can screen you out too effectively, especially with infiltrating Death Guard at the moment. I think there's too many armies that can screen you out too effectively, and I'm not a retaliation carder, so I'm not going to take them. It could be a mistake, but I feel like I'm better off taking other units. And I also, interestingly, feel like broadsides are really back on the menu now, because before you got screwed over for taking them in big groups because of the whole 1 spotter for 1 unit thing. But now 1 spotter can spot for all the broadsides, so I think broadsides might be back in a big way. Maybe I should be taking 6, but anyway. I know another thing people are going to say is you need to be taking breaches. I think the breacher fish is a trap. And I know I'm going to get a lot of pushback on this, but think about it. By the time you've taken a devilfish and a unit of breachers and a Carja Fireblade and done that twice, because you want the extra shots from the Carja Fireblade, I think you're looking at like 235 points for each one of those. So that's like 470 points. And the problem I find with that is I think they don't get the return on investment. I think they're very good, but also that tends to be the only place that Tau players take like OC to infantry, apart from like maybe 1 squad of crew carnivores. And I think the idea of rushing forward, jumping out and blasting people with your only decent OC is good damage, but I think it sacrifices your infantry screen too early on. And I think that it removes having an OC dump from your toolbox. So I'm purposely not taking the breach teams, even though I'm aware of them and I could take them, because I think that they're a red herring. But if you disagree with me on that, please let me know. Please let me know. I've looked at them, I've analysed them, and what I like my infantry to do is to screen an OC dump, and what I like my damage dealers, what I like my big things to do is be damage dealers. Now, I mentioned about maybe swapping out a broadside from the unit of Pathfinders. Let me know what you think about that idea, and then combining these two together. Also, let me know what you think about getting rid of all of the broadsides and actually putting 3 devilfish in here, just for an element. And I'd probably just end up putting strike teams in there, or maybe I'd put Pathfinders in there and like 1 strike team. But let me know what you think, because if I did that, it would give me a proper mechanized element to this list. That's a lot of holes I'm throwing down. Hammerhead, 3 hammerheads, 2 riptides, and 3 devilfish is 8 armored holes. And also, it would save me 15 points, which would allow me to turn this Ethereal into Darkstrider, which could go with one of the Pathfinder teams. And Darkstrider not only gives you +1 to wound, but also stops you the enemy from coming within 12 inches of you, which could be very, very, very helpful in the Death Guard meta I feel like I'm going to find myself going into. So, let me know what you think about this list. Let me know what you think about just swapping the broadside out for a Pathfinder team and bringing the other two broadsides together for CP efficiency. And let me know what you think about sacking the broadsides off entirely, going for a bit of mech, and also getting Darkstrider in the list. This is sort of the broad strokes that are going to stay the same, but I think there's a few tweaks there that I'm interested to hear what the Tau community thinks of. Last thing to mention, I have thought about dropping down to 3 small stealth suits. I don't want to do that. I like the fact that it's quite cheap to go for 6. It's only 40 points more, which is a 40-point saving. And then taking 2 squads of 3, if that makes sense. And I also think that stealth suits are going to be a really hot target for my opponent to try and take away from me. So having the bigger squads gives them a bit more durability. 3 stealth suits, bad roll, they all go. 6 stealth suits is kind of tricky for your opponent. They're -1 to hit, and their T4, and their 2 wounds. There's a lot there. So let me know what you think about that idea as well. But you know what? I think that finally just about covers everything. I've tried to cover my thoughts on the Tau and my feedback on the video that I did, whilst leaving the memes at the door. And I've tried to give it a bit of a more serious go-over, and I hope that that has come across. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What did you think of this video? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? What do you think about the list? What are your own thoughts and feelings regarding the state of the Tau right now? What direction GW have taken them in, and what direction they may continue to go in the future? What do you like about the Tau? What do you dislike about them? Both on the tabletop and in the lore. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to go ahead and smash that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, then please consider subscribing to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.